Welcome to The Sears Show. Join us as we explore medicine, health, mental health, mindset, and fitness, guided by lifelong seeker of knowledge, Sifu Raphael. He will lead us on a transformative journey with groundbreaking insights and extraordinary guests from around the world. Together, we'll dive into the latest holistic approaches to well-being and the profound connections between mind, body, and soul. Sifu Raphael's expertise in positive thinking, resilience, and personal growth will inspire you to reach new heights. Get ready for the Sears Show. It's time to embrace a brighter, healthier, and more empowered future.
5, 4, 0.
Good morning, Andy. Thank you so much for joining me on the Sears Show. How are you this morning?
I'm great, thank you, and I love that introduction.
Oh, cool. I'm happy you like it.
Yeah, we're very well done. Very inspiring and gets your juices up this early in the morning.
That's right. That's right. So you were telling me before, this is the earliest podcast you've ever done.
Yeah, the earliest start the podcast.
There you go.
So and it's all good. I'm an early riser, so
Awesome.
I'm excited to be here. I already got my coffee in.
Nice, nice. I already been to 2 gyms this morning, so.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah. Well, you know what? It's my routine. If you will, routines are important in our lives when we learn how to use them properly. But today we're going to talk about something really, really amazing and important, and it's parenting, right? The parent journey. I think and you're an expert in it. How did you, as a parent, obviously, but how did you become an expert in parenting?
Well, parenting's the most important job there is, but there's no manual, and there's so many other trainings and opportunities to become effective at what you do, but not parenting. And I became an expert in a couple different ways. One is I made all the mistakes that young parents are making nowadays, and it's that much worse. So in terms of all the things that parents are having to endure nowadays. The second thing is I was a very successful business entrepreneur for a couple decades. And in that time, I learned how to really develop people and get the best out of people. And then when that's the best way to scale a business, is to get the best out of people, not just to have the best product or the best sales team. It's actually to get the best out of your team, because they're the ones who execute.
Right.
And then unfortunately, but fortunately, I guess, depending upon how you look at it, my daughter experienced some mental illness, some anxiety and depression as a teenager. And my wife and I didn't really know where to turn. We tried a bunch of different local solutions, tutoring, a psychiatrist. We worked with a therapist. It wasn't enough. We ended up having to give her the gift of wilderness therapy and residential treatment, where she was actually sent away for 13 months to heal and learn new coping mechanisms. And it took her out of her environment that triggered her. And when that happened, our phone started ringing because people said, I'm struggling too as a parent. What it did was it made me think that I had a higher calling than just being a businessman. And it made me, and so I got certified. And so I got certified I took 2-year-long certification classes that involved, and one is affiliated with the International Coaching Federation, which is recognized globally. It involved classwork and testing and application and meeting with clients and all the rest. And so it's very rigorous, and it allowed me to apply all my learnings to a parent setting and being more of a facilitator than a solution person, because you're trying to, again, get the best out of people in their environment. And I've been doing this for a number of years now. And what I can tell people is I know a lot of different approaches, but I'm more of a facilitator. But chances are a lot of people have a lot of the same issues and patterns. And I've kind of seen the movie. I've seen what I've seen where parents struggle, how people struggle, why people struggle, whether they're single parents, married parents, or co-parents, and the approaches that work. And so, so my expertise developed through all of that.
Beautiful. So when we think about, and you talked about the struggles, similarities, and so forth, I think one of the biggest challenges that parents have is communication, right?
No doubt. Communication is, I mean, the reason humans survive is because of they protect each other and they're connected and they communicate, right? I mean, for thousands and thousands of years. And communication is the key to getting along and to getting things done and all the rest. And and there's so many reasons that it breaks down, which I could go into, but no doubt it's all about communication with the other parent. It's all about communication with your child, and you know, you can, if you master that in the right way, you're going to be a lot happier, and your kids are going to be a lot happier for sure.
Well, a lot of people don't. And I've heard this a thousand times. I communicate with my kids. I tell them what to do. Right?
Yeah.
Is that the right kind of communication?
I'll raise my hand. I did that too.
Yeah.
And I think your listeners know, and you know, because of the sarcasm, that the answer's that's not a good thing. That's actually called authoritarian parenting,
right?
Where you're demanding but stern in your approach, and a lot of parents tell their kids what to do because they want to be in control. They think they know better. They have a certain perspective based upon the way that they were brought up by their parents and what they experienced in life as a kid. And that doesn't always work,
right,
for our children, in terms of the way they respond to things, the way that they are able to face adversity and learn things on their own. And so you're actually, when you're telling kids what to do, certainly at a very young age, that's okay. But when they're really incapable for themselves,
right.
But that clearly doesn't work.
And then also, what I've heard a lot of things or sayings from parents is, my children don't listen to me. And a lot of it I've seen is because the kids don't have the lack. They have a lack of knowing how to communicate with their parents. Because a lot of kids may be afraid of the outcomes, that they may be able to express themselves, and then they get in trouble for doing it. So,
yeah, that's right. So, kids are not bad communicators with their parents. Parents are bad listeners. And so, so you had it right. When a kid doesn't want to talk to his or her parent, it's not because the kid isn't a good communicator. It's because the parent hasn't created a safe place for the kid to talk, and the manner in which they talk. And a great example is, you pick your kid up from school and you ask a close-ended question.
That's it.
And you basically say, "How was your day at school?" And the kid says good or bad, and then the parent probes more, and then the parent probes more, and And if the child says I struggled at something like, like a test or a sport or something, they get criticized or judged,
Mm.
and then they get told what to do the next time. Why would anybody want to go back to that?
Yeah.
you know
Even as an adult, you don't want that either.
Nobody would. Nobody
Yeah,
would.
yeah, yeah.
So and um you think you're doing the right thing, you think you're showing interest in your kids, but you're really not. Or there's a difference between um every human being wants to feel that they have a sense of control and a sense, and that they feel understood.
Hmm.
And so when a parent can create that environment with their kid, they're actually not giving up control, they're giving more control, they're giving more empowerment. And
Hmm.
an example is just giving choices. So it could be your choices, or it could be a collaborative effort on some choices of things that they need to do. Like, you need to clean your room, you can clean it when you want. You can clean it today, tomorrow, or the next day, but you got to clean it one of 3 days. Which choice would you like to make?
Hmm. Hmm.
They make the choice. They do it on their own time. They feel like they're in control, but you're getting the outcome you want.
Right. It's
Right?
almost, it sounds to me like you're talking to me like you're training a salesman, right? Because if you think about it, it should be their idea to buy, right?
No doubt. No doubt. And believe me, I've had years and years and years of sales experience, and you have to know in sales who the different types of buyers are. There's a user buyer and a technical buyer and an economic buyer, and so I've been trained in that too. And you certainly need, if it's in any of those scenarios, if they're the sponsor and support the idea
Mm.
because it's good for them and good for the organization, then they embrace it more. Same thing. You're always selling but instead of selling your solution or your idea or pushing it down, you're actually collaborating a little bit more. And when you're in the business world, you're usually thinking that you're amongst equals. If you're in a sales mode or whatever, you're amongst equals, and you're trying to sell to a peer.
Right.
Parents think that they have all the power and that they can just push down anything they want, and it doesn't work that way. And that they um they're not satisfied with the solutions that exists, and they pick the wrong battles.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, and the couple of examples. Um, a client of mine was frustrated because her child, who was a teenager who drove, had a few too many things hanging from the rearview mirror.
Mm.
And I said to the mom, I said, and the dad, I said, is it a safety issue? Meaning, is it getting in the way of their vision? Because I'd be
Mm.
concerned about that.
Right.
No. And do they have 1,000 things on there, or like two or three things? Two or three things. I said, is that the fight you really want to pick? Is that really that important? Or is it because you wouldn't do that, as opposed to maybe that's okay for them to do that?
Mm.
So you have to realize that kids need to make their own decisions. I work with a lot of parents of kids who have gotten into addictive tendencies, either social media with their phones, alcohol, drugs, and they're doing it not to be bad kids. They're doing it to cope. And the parents try and push down their expectations on the kid. And
Mm.
literally, nobody, no adult, no kid gets sober unless they want to get sober. They have to want to do it. Not if you beg them, not if you shame them, not if you use logic. They have to realize that they need to do it in order to want to do it. And so you just have to, again, it goes back to that communication and the approaches that you use.
Mm, yeah. You know, the more you talk, the more I'm thinking, man, parenting is a business. You can be the CEO, and in order to have that business be successful, you start it with you have to empower your team because they're the ones that are going to do the work, right? So I believe as a parent, we should consider our family as the CEO and give everybody a task or an idea of like, hey, we would like to accomplish these things. Who wants to help? And then who's got the strengths and weaknesses and so forth, and how can we help them? What are your thoughts on that?
There's certainly a lot of overlap, which is why it translated well for me.
Mm,
Um, from business entrepreneur to parent coach for sure. I think, and one of the things that I think is important is that your family kind of has a mission, vision, and values, just like you would in a business.
mm,
And then how does that apply to your family unit? So an example is there was one family I worked with that they had they had preteens,
mm.
and they were struggling with their preteens, but they had a pool in their backyard, and they were the only family with a pool on the block, basically. And I said, well, what kind of family do you want to be? And they basically had said that they had talked and they wanted to be the family that where people could gather, where it was kind of a community place, and they and because of the pool, it was a central focal point and all the rest. And so they the family met and basically said, okay, if that's what we want to, if that's the type of family we want to be, what values and behaviors do we have to have in our family in order to accomplish that?
Right.
We have to keep our house relatively clean because people are going to come over. We
Mm,
have to, somebody's got to make sure that the pool is clean and that the chemicals are in there. And if we need to have food for people, we need people who can help and clean up and do all the rest and things like that. And we need to, we can't play and invite people over if we don't get our homework done. Right.
right.
So that's what leads to a collaborative discussion and makes it overlap kind of like a business scenario.
Mhm.
But I would be careful in that a family is not a business.
Right.
And I've been accused, and I learned a long time ago. I told you about all the mistakes I made.
Right.
I
Right. Mm.
I was told many times by my kids, by my wife, by my mom, by my sister, this isn't a business meeting.
Who's taking notes?
Right? Well, it's the way I conducted it, right? I
Oh,
wasn't,
gotcha.
and so, so, um, but being collaborative and being and understanding, what you're wanting to do, and then again, it's the family's idea, the family's contributions, and the parent. And we haven't gotten to this yet. Maybe we were going to talk about this, but the where kids get confused is where there's an uninvolved parent. The
Mm,
parent's working all the time or just doesn't care enough, or there's not alignment of some sort.
mhm,
And so the kid gets confused, or kids are smart. They'll use certain communication to their advantage.
mhm.
Wherever the seam is, they'll find that weak link and
Oh,
take
yeah.
advantage of it and use the confusion to their advantage. So what parents do is they tend to be reactive. They tend to uh, um, apply a punishment when they're frustrated based upon their perceived violation. And and one parent might apply a different benefit or consequence depending upon what has occurred.
Mm,
And so the key thing is, again, pick your fights, pick what's important in the family. And if you use the pool analogy that we talked about, they've you already know what's important, and what's important if you already have discussed it. And so being able to list those 5 to 10 things that are really important in that household for everybody to get along and for everything to run, and what the benefit or the consequence is for the kids for adhering to it
Mm-hmm.
is
Okay.
really important. And sometimes some parents are more lenient, some parents are tougher, and making sure that you talk in advance about those things so that you can collaborate with your kids and they know what that benefit or consequence is rather than being reactive actually provides a sense of safety for your kids and a sense of control, because they know, if I do this, this is what's going to happen. Then the parents have to follow through, and
Oh yeah.
a lot of parents don't follow through either. So what does that tell your kid, right?
Mm.
So so and it's a lot. Parenting has always had its benefits and challenges for as long as parenting has been around. but the social media presence, where the algorithms just continue to suck you in and they want you to be a part of it, whether it's good for you or bad for you. I mean, I read the other day about how the algorithms, when someone is thinking about suicide, will actually get more information sent to them about suicide that's not necessarily productive or positive,
Really? Wow.
right? So it will actually cause people to be
Go deeper into the
less
thought.
hopeful and go deeper into the abyss.
Mm.
There's so much online bullying and predatory action um, that by adults of kids and by kids of kids that we never had before. I was talking with somebody the other day on my podcast, which is called Winning Parenting, where I interviewed somebody and he was bullied as a kid. And he basically said, hey, when I was bullied as a kid, at least when I left the school, the bullying stopped.
Mm.
Right now it just goes on. And then, and then there are things that we didn't have to face as kids, school shootings.
Mm.
You don't even feel safe in your school.
No.
So levels of depression and anxiety and substance use and self-harm have just skyrocketed. COVID didn't help because people had less of a connection.
Mm.
Parents were trying to keep their kids busy while they were working. It was just like there's just a perfect storm of a lot of things that are making you like a salmon swimming upstream or going against the wind, or whatever analogy you want to use. And so having those fundamentals and the proper approach really makes a difference. And when I work with parents, I use a framework, and so I'm consistent with it. And it's my trademarked for a framework, and it's basically it's not unlike what you would use in Six Sigma, or which is continuous improvement. So it's the 4 A's are assess, address, act, and adjust. And so it's really getting to know, on the assessment side, doing intake and understanding what the parents who have engaged me have been through as parents in their lives, in their childhood, what their relationships are like, where they've been successful as parents, where they've failed, what their goals are. Understanding all that creates a foundation to build on. And then after that assessment, you can create a plan. So that's addressing. You can create a specific plan for them in terms of what they need to try, what they need to do, how they need to be consistent, how they need to communicate. Then they need to act, which I call bumping into the world. It's, unless you can enact it and get feedback, you're not going to see if it works or not. And then I have weekly meetings or weekly calls where those adjustments are made. And after a period of weeks or months, it sticks. And my success rate has been really good for people
Nice.
who are vulnerable, who are willing to engage, and make the adjustments. And my Google reviews are really good. And, I'm proud of the people who have been able to find that confidence and joy back in their lives as a result.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different topics we can definitely talk about. We can talk about divorced parents, different homes, different even bedrooms, siblings. We can talk about siblings from the other parent, if you will, right? Stepbrothers, stepsisters.
Sure.
We can talk about different family members living in grandma, grandpa, aunts, uncles, who knows what. But there's so much that goes into parenting, and one of them I believe, and we talked earlier about communication, but it's even the way the words we use. And one of the things that I don't know why, but it drives me nuts when I hear parents doing baby talk with their children. And I'm like, if you baby talk them, they won't learn how to talk properly. So for me, it's like, don't ugu and gaga them. Talk to them as you would use regular words. Don't baby the words, right? And then we also get into helicopter parents, which a helicopter parent, which I've had some, as I teach martial arts as well. It's one of my many businesses, and I love it because I'm able to guide parents who are a little bit lost as to my kid doesn't listen to me. They have no confidence. They have no self-esteem. So many different avenues. My kids being picked on, and sometimes we find out they're being picked on by another family member. Sometimes it's not necessarily school. So when it comes to helicopter parents, I had a mom come to me the other day, and she goes, "I can't believe it. I actually left my son after 4 years with someone else." She goes, "I'm overwhelmed." I said, "It's okay. It's going to be okay." I said, "Is he alive?" She said, "Yes." I said, "Oh, good. He's alive." "Did he complain?" "No." "How was everything?" "Everything was amazing." I said, "Okay." So you have to slowly keep letting go, letting go. So for me, helicopter parents don't allow kids even to fall down without like rushing over and, and, and oh my God, I got to kiss the boo boo and all this stuff. Instead of letting the kids get up on their own and go, you know what? They're gonna cry. It's okay. And then like when we do, I believe it or not, I have kids as young as 4 years old put on gear and spar. And the parents, when the kids fall down, they run to try to pick them up. I'm like, nope. I said, you back up, you go sit down. They have to get up on their own. They're like, really?
Sure.
I'm like, yep.
Sure.
And so it's very interesting.
Yeah. Um, yeah. Rescuing and being a helicopter parent is not ideal, because the kids don't experience adversity and they don't know how to bounce back from failure, and bouncing back from failure and experiencing the world is what allows you to grow. People only grow when they experience some stress, and it could be positive stress or negative stress, no matter how old you are.
Right.
And I told you we made all the mistakes. I was the parent who was the get her done kind of guy. My parents divorced when I was 12. I was caught in between my two parents in the shame and blame game
Mm,
and in monetary challenges. And so I became far more independent. And rather than cowering, I actually just got a job at an early age, and just faced the adversity and got it done. Now, it wasn't easy, but I did it. I felt like I had no other choice.
gotcha.
And so I carried that with me. When my kids faced some adversity, I wasn't empathetic. I would say, that wasn't so hard for me. Why can't you do it? Right. On the other hand, my wife was the rescuer. She was the
Mm,
helicopter parent. And so she felt she was doing the right thing when she would shuttle my daughter, my teenage daughter, to the bus stop a quarter mile when it was spritzing out, just a little bit of rain, because
mm,
she could and because she wanted to and because it afforded her the opportunity to spend a little time with her. But my view was, you know, I'm not telling her she can't use an umbrella or a rain jacket, but if she can't stand out in a little bit of mist or sprinkles for 10 minutes. How was she going to face really the tough stuff?
Mm.
And when our daughter was away at wilderness therapy, it was kind of a reset button for her. After a period of weeks, my wife and I were invited out, and one of the exercises they had was called statues. It was one of the most impactful things I've been through. My daughter basically was the choreographer of a play, basically, or a little minuet, and she got to call on other parents and kids to play our family members.
Wow.
And yeah, and basically created a statue of us in terms of where we were positioned, what we were looking like, and what we were saying.
Mm.
And she had my older daughter, who's 5 years older than the one we've been referring to, out in the distance, because when a lot of this was happening, she was away at college. So
Mm.
she wasn't quite as involved or implicated, but when kids are struggling, it affects the other siblings for sure, and other parent members. The second thing is, the second one was me. So they had another dad play me, and I was away a lot. I was the business guy. My wife was the stay-at-home parent. And so my daughter projected me as kind of the aloof guy who was out on the side, and I actually had my hand on my ear as if I was on the phone.
Mm.
And then she played herself and had somebody play my wife, and she cowered over and had a woman who was playing my wife helicopter over her.
Oh, wow.
So
Interesting.
yeah, so my wife didn't realize that she was being that much of a rescuer. I didn't realize that my daughter perceived me as being, so aloof. I thought I was doing the right thing, providing for my family. My wife thought she was doing the right thing, protecting the family.
Mm.
So you learn a lot about yourselves in doing that. And, you made a comment, circling back, you made a comment earlier about communication and how words matter. Well, I would say, one of the things I've learned in business and in sales and in life and in parenting is your expression also matters, the way you deliver it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're if you got a scowl on your face when you're talking to your kid, no matter what you're saying, it's not going to come off right, and so
Not at all.
right, so you have to understand that you're how you say it is as important, if not more important, than what you say. And
Yeah.
and I don't deal with a lot of babies, but my expertise is like, my wheelhouse is like 8-year-old kids who have started experiencing real hard, real struggles, to 25 or older. I deal with adults who haven't launched or into drugs, and the parents are still supporting the kids and all the rest.
Mm.
So, kids pick up on all that stuff for sure.
Without a doubt.
And the parent coaching that we invested in when my daughter was away helped us so much. It helped us forgive each other. It helped us grieve over, the path that my daughter had taken, and let that be, and accepting of that. It helped us align our communication styles, and it allowed us to be prepared for when my daughter came home. And so all of, that whole statues thing kind of highlighted how separated we were physically and being on the same page, for sure.
Mm. Mm. When we think about parenting, a lot of people, or what I should say is that some kids only, even though there's two parents in the home, they really have one, right? And one of the things that winds up happening, and it still happens today, no matter what, corporal punishment, where people believe that if I hit my kid, they'll fall in line, they'll do what I want them to do. And then what winds up happening is, I've heard this a lot, this is going to hurt me more than it's going to hurt you. Meanwhile, you're whipping the kid. So for me, I have two kids. I've never put a hand on them ever. They're 18 and 22. I'm sorry, 19 and 22. Well, the other one just had a birthday. And
Yeah,
for
they're
me,
big enough. They're big enough to hit back now.
yeah, but I'm a martial artist, so I don't know. I'm just kidding.
Okay.
But actually, one of my sons is trying to be a UFC fighter, so he
Oh
trains a
wow.
lot. Yeah, he's bigger than me actually, but he still comes to me and asks me for fighting advice, which is kind of cool. But for me, it
Yeah,
was always
you know about consistency and discipline through the martial arts, right? So
correct. Absolutely.
you have consistency and discipline in your parenting and the way you handle things in general. It carries over, and so that's where martial arts, for there are a lot of kids who struggle who, when they get into martial arts, they learn discipline, they learn focus, they learn, especially kids who are on the spectrum or kids who have a
Mhm.
learning issue or anything like that. There are a lot of kids who find a safe haven and a focus and a direction when they get into martial arts, for sure.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, I talk about spectrum. I have three different age people. I'm going to call them people because one is 14, the other one's 22, and the other one's 58 who are on the spectrum. And I train them all. And I've trained them as young as, 6 years old.
Yeah. Well, that's the spectrum in terms of age spectrum, but there's also the spectrum in terms of
I
mental
was
health,
talking
fitness,
autistic.
ADD.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I was actually, no, I
yeah,
have plenty of ADD kids. I'm talking about autistic kids
yeah,
who
yeah.
we're talking on the spectrum. But when we think about the way we treat our kids, for example, my kids know they can tell me anything and they won't get in trouble for it. And I let them know that, listen, whatever actions you take, there's consequences. Whether they're mine or someone else's, there's still consequences. So our actions, no matter who you are in the world, there's consequences. But I will not love you less. I will not think of you differently, and you will not get in trouble because you did the wrong thing. You just have to know there's consequences behind every action. And they've respected that. But then when I wanted to talk about is that even though some kids grow up in a household with two parents, they really have one parent. And you talked about it earlier, where one parent is not necessarily helping to guide the child, and where both parents haven't communicated. And that's where the problem truly comes in. Parents are not communicating with one another is how do we help our children? How do we make sure they're getting their schoolwork? Who's going to do the homework with them? Who's going to make the food? Who's going to make this decision, that decision? Financial. Do we give them an allowance? So, for example, I learned early on, the to create for saving techniques for my kids, right? And I taught them the value of money because school doesn't teach them that. So as a parent, I think that's our responsibility so that they don't go later on, they go, oh, my parents going to take care of it. And then they're 25 years old and then they're still living in their parents' basement. So it's not cool. So I taught them, to have I got them four piggy banks. We went to the bank. We got four piggy banks. I had them do drawings. We put the drawings on them, and then I taught them one is for savings, one is for tithing, one is for investing, and the last one is for fun. Well, I said you can put them any order you want, and then so my kids now understand. My 19-year-old just bought his second BMW on his own.
Wow.
My other one, brand new car also, and it's on their own. They didn't ask for anything. But here's the thing.
That's impressive. Not the process and the effort, not just the type of car and it is the car.
Right. I mean, it didn't matter what kind of car, but the
No.
fact that they did it on their own because of the values I instilled in them.
Yeah.
To you should have fun. But you should put money aside. What happens with our teens and with our young adults, the reason we have so much financial problems is because parenting is not there when it comes to finances. Because a
Yeah.
lot of parents don't really know finance either. I think as a
No, I mean,
parent, you need that.
America's in debt for sure.
It is.
I think financial literacy is really important. A lot of parents ask me things like, when should I teach my kids about money? When should I buy a smartphone? When should I do this? And when should I do that? And I basically don't give them a straight answer. I basically say the way it's managed and the way it's delivered is what's important.
Mhm.
So you could give your kid a phone at, you know, at age 10 or even earlier, if you have the right boundaries and the right systems and the right benefits and the right consequences, so they know how to use it
Right.
and use it properly. There's some kids who are 16 or 18 who don't, or even older, who can't use a phone for some of the goodness that it offers, and as opposed to just it being an addictive, problematic thing.
Right.
Same, the financial literacy is the same thing. When is it appropriate, and how are you going to deliver it so it's not being imposed on them, but so that they get to experience the fun and the benefit of it. Hey, when I've got some money for fun, and I'm actually seeing the other things that I'm doing too, and
Uh,
I did that as well, and you know most 55% of households are two-parent households. 45% are single-parent or
right.
co-parent households. So almost half, you don't have a typical scenario. And I work with a lot of parents in that area with the co-parenting, because parents, you know, one parent wants to control the X on the other side in terms of what's right for their kid and how that's managed, and
Right.
that's just not feasible, right? You have to agree on certain things, but then when they're at the other parent's house, if they eat dinner a little earlier, if they get to use a little bit more screen time, if they go to bed a little bit later, that's you have your own rules and your own boundaries, and you communicate that to your child. And you communicate to your child that if there's something that's really important, especially logistical things like handoffs and going to activities and things like that, that needs to be coordinated, you just say, I'm going to work with your other parent as
Mhm.
best I can, realizing in your best interest, but I can't control mom or dad or whatever. I had a hard enough time doing it when we were together, kind of thing. So,
Right.
but um, um, so it's not a situation where one parent is maybe more involved than the other parent, but where there are situations where there are two parents, whether it's co-parenting or partners who are together, it's the different style of parenting that needs to get aligned. So
Mhm.
studies have shown that an authoritative parent, one who has demands, who sets boundaries, who is consistent, but is sensitive and responsive at the same time, giving that sense of control or understanding, is the most successful parenting attribute or the way
Mhm.
to do things. And the reason is because those types of parents encourage kids to be responsible, to think for themselves, and consider the reasons for rules.
Yeah.
And so the other parent may be more permissive or more authoritarian, and then that's okay as long as you have one authoritative parent and there's good communication proactively between the parents.
Yeah. Without a doubt. Without a doubt.
The parents
One of
who
the
are
things.
uninvolved, there are parents who are uninvolved. That's
Mm,
that's when it's a problem, because they tend to be stern and punitive and don't enforce limits. And so that's the least successful attribute. And so as long as is again, it all falls back on the communication, and a big part of the issue is parents carry the burden of their kids' success in their own view. So if meals aren't being made and things aren't being cleaned up, and parents are having to rescue the kids or nag the kids because those boundaries haven't been put in place and haven't been maintained, then it becomes that much harder. And and when you're trying to balance your business life and your family life, it becomes that much harder.
It does. It does. You know, there's so many different topics we haven't even touched upon, but we're basically out of time. I want to thank you for today. It was great. You have so much knowledge. I strongly believe that parents who are not united in that parenting front should find a way to come together and even get a parenting coach like Andy, because we owe it to our children. We had children for a reason. And for those people who say, oh, there were an accident, there are no accidents. That child is there. Love them, treat them right, treat them as a human being. You are the guide, but be the light that they need, right? Andy, thank you so
100%.
much.
100%. Thank you. I really enjoyed it.
Yes, sir. Thank you, and have
And I
your
won't
best
go
day.
back to bed. I promise I'm not going to go back to bed.
Well, eventually you'll have to. Maybe not
And
right
if
now, but maybe
anybody,
tonight.
and if anybody wants to, I got into this business to help people.
Mhm.
Clearly, if I can help somebody as or a family as a parent coach, more than willing to see if there's a good fit for us. And people can look me up at parentsjourneycoaching.net, the website, and schedule a discovery call in some time. But I'm not going to, we talked about sales. I'm not pushy about anything. I want people to have more confidence and joy in their lives. And I'm not a good fit for everybody, or they're not a good fit for me, but I have a lot of other resources, and I'm a good ear to listen as people are struggling. And so I welcome people to go to my website, see what else I do, or what my programs offer, what other resources are there, and then schedule a call if they think appropriate. And tune into Winning Parenting too. You can learn some things.
Do that, definitely. Wellington Parent, right? It's a show that you do, and you talk about all the great advice that you give. So thank you,
Yes.
everybody. Andy, thank you so much for being here, my friend. Have yourself an exceptional day. Everybody, look forward to seeing you next week. Take care.